Hello and welcome to Inductive Conversations. My name is Arnel J. Ignacio, and we're here doing another episode of How'd You Get Here, where we explore the professional journey of an inductive automation employee. Today, joining with me is Jason Waits. He's the Chief Information Security Officer here at Inductive Automation. Welcome, Jason.
Hey, happy to be here.
Before we jump in, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself and what you currently do here at IA?
Yeah, as you mentioned, I'm the Chief Information Security Officer. So I'm currently in charge of running our corporate security program. Been here for about 6.5 years. Started in IT, and I was formerly tasked with building out a security program in early 2018. So I've been pretty focused on cyber for the last about 5 years now. So I currently run a team of our security team, and I also oversee IT.
The work that you've done has been great for both the organization, both the product Ignition. So prior to IA, what were you doing, and what prompted you to want to make a change?
Yeah, at the time I was working as a network administrator for a grocery store, running all their back end IT systems, databases, point of sale, Wi Fi. I had to maintain stuff like PCI compliance and things like that. I had finished a bachelor's in IT with an emphasis on network engineering and systems administration. And I was really kind of fired up about moving into security as well. And I was just looking around for a bigger environment. I'd kind of outgrown my current environment. So I was looking for just a new role with more tech to play with.
Has security been something that you've been interested, since for a long time, or was there something that got you interested in that?
I think I really thought of it as a a plausible career path back about 10 years ago. So I did a security course in college, and I think in the first week I was like, oh, I think I'm going into security. So I was pretty much caught that bug.
And so, in the midst of your search, you're trying to look for new opportunities. How did you come across inductive automation?
I was pretty lucky. I just stumbled upon a posting for an IT position on LinkedIn, and really easy to apply. I had a call back really quickly, and within about a week, I was hired. So it was pretty surreal. I'd been kind of starting to kind of loosely look around, but not super aggressively, and I saw Inductive, and it was a compelling job posting, and here we are.
And at the time, you kind of touched upon it. What attracted you to IA, and what made you decide to take on the position?
I think I really liked one that it was a software company. I thought it would be a really great environment to play with a lot of technology and hopefully be fast moving and just a lot of things to do. And then I also really liked the industry it was in. Making SCADA software, that was pretty new to me. But just going down rabbit holes, learning about that, it's pretty critical stuff. And so I really liked the kind of the mission of supporting a company that makes software used in all these critical industries all around the world by massive companies doing really cool stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, talking with other individuals who've come on board. Industrial automation is not the first thing that comes to mind when they apply to a company, but once you get into it and you start learning about all the different things that are occurring in an industry, how our software works with that, you start to see what can happen and what is being done, and it's really cool to be a part of that. So, yeah, no, I can understand your view on that. So, when you first started here at Inductive Automation, what was going through your mind at the time? Anything that stands out to you?
It was just kind of surreal. I landed a really cool job at a really cool company, and it was just a really fun first year. Got a lot of exposure to a lot of new things. I was doing exactly what I wanted to be doing at the time, which was networking and security and some systems administration stuff. And then that led into a path doing just dedicated security work. It was just a really cool company. Everyone was so nice. I was just surrounded by so many smart people and stuff. It was just like yeah, it was good times. So really fun first year.
So yeah, let's take a look at that journey at IA. Can you briefly talk about your progression here? What skills you were starting off with, what skills you picked up along the way, and what were some of the projects that you were working on that put you on the path to success?
So I started out kind of focused on a lot of networking, running our network gear, our switches, our access points, our firewalls, and any of the security tools we had at the time. And did IT support on the side, ran Linux servers and all Windows servers, Active Directory and stuff like that. And just got to really upgrade and fix and tune and implement a lot of new things in those areas. I think one of the bigger projects was I got to kind of rebuild the entire network stack as we moved to the new building, and that was what, 2017. So that was a huge project, just completely new architecture. Got to bake in a whole bunch of cool security stuff. Really fun project. So otherwise, I just got to kind of wrangle in a lot of these things and just more upgrades and updates and implement some new security tooling.
At the time, were you what was your role at the when you first began? What was kind of like the title that you started off with?
I was IT support specialist when I started.
And then you progressed to what was your next progression in your journey?
My next title was cybersecurity risk officer.
And then from there you got to the chief information security officer.
Yep, basically, I think I was director of cybersecurity somewhere in the middle there too. So as once we turned cybersecurity into its standalone division, started adding more members and fleshing it out. So now the role is a little more global in scope and scale.
And then I asked this question from a lot of individuals is like, did you envision yourself being in the place that you are now?
Definitely not. No, definitely not like kind of at the top of the food chain in terms of security. I expected to kind of end up being like a security engineer, or just kind of doing working in security, building out defenses, implementing detection and response kind of capabilities. That's kind of what I expected. So I didn't quite expect the trajectory I've had here.
You know, you were mentioning how you were coming up with all the systems and infrastructure for a new building. Is that something that was exciting for you to work on?
Yeah, that was probably the highlight of my career here. I feel like I think most people who are involved on the IT side probably feel the same way. But it was really cool to just one architect a whole new kind of building from scratch, and then to do all the groundwork to get it operational, um, and then to watch people's kind of faces when they walked in that first day because we'd been working on the building, for a year, and then so most people just showed up. They went home on a Friday, they showed up to the new building on a Monday, and it was like a completely new thing. So that was really cool. It was a lot of fun, a lot of work, a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah. No, I can imagine the amount of work that went into it, and thank you for all the work that you've done and the team has done here to make the building what it is today. Um, were there any like challenges or accomplishments that stood out during the work that you did here at the building?
Um, no, I mean, I think the biggest challenge was just the timeline. We had a pretty short timeline to move everything from one building to the other. We did all over a single weekend, so we had
Yeah.
to we had to send people home on a Friday, move everything over on Saturday, Sunday, and be operational on Monday. So that was pretty crazy.
No, yeah, no, I remember when we did that transition, and yeah, it was fairly seamless. We just left the other building, and then as you said, the weekend we came back on the Monday, and we were up and running and ready to go. So yeah, it was really cool. Um, so while working for Inductive Automation, and for the company, what stands out to you as being the most important? What is important for you while working here?
Um, it's just really been nice to work with a lot of just really smart and nice people. In a very kind of transparent and collaborative culture. Where we all work together to solve these problems. So I think that's been a really kind of key factor, I guess.
What would you say would be what's something unique to IA that you find working here?
I think just how happy and mission driven most people are, and how it's been really cool to see kind of the customer side of things too. How many cool customers are doing really cool stuff and with our product, and how much they appreciate the company, and so that helps keep a really positive vibe inside the company. And then we have people just kind of working together, to solve some of these problems for people.
And how would you describe the culture here at Inductive Automation?
It's just very mission driven and collaborative, I'd say. Just a lot of people working and teaming up to solve problems. It's really easy just to slack someone and jump on a quick meeting with them and hammer something out, across division lines and stuff like that. So the growth's been pretty crazy for the last 5-6 years. So just a lot of new faces, a lot of growing and scaling and doing that in efficient ways has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and having having becoming a remote first company recently, how has it been like to? Has the I team been? Have they been remote? Have they been on site? Has it been like kind of hybrid type of structure? And how has it been like with that structure?
I guess we're a bit split. So the security team is fully remote. All the other members are in other states, so that's been no problem at all. We have really good communication. With stuff like Google Meet and Slack and stuff, it's really easy to stay in solid communication with each other. The IT team, they're split. Some of the members who run the data center or do like help desk style work have there's an in office component to that since we have a building. So they're usually in some kind of a split state where they're in the office 1 or 2 or 3 days a week. Um, Other people working in like the cloud engineering team, they're fully remote.
Do you feel like inductive automation gives you what you need to succeed here?
Yeah, absolutely. In a lot of companies, IT or security are kind of looked at as cost centers because they're not directly generating revenue. But IT or security divisions are pretty foundational to an organization's success. Because we're doing stuff that underpins everything everyone else is doing. We're using technology to solve problems through automation to make things more secure, safer, faster, more consistent. And so when you shortchange that, you end up with just operational issues that burn you in the end. So I guess I'm really thankful that we've always had a pretty solid. I mean, we're a tech company, and so we no one's ever fought that, and we embrace technology to solve these business problems. And so we haven't had to be in that situation that I see peers and other companies in, where it takes years to solve these problems, or they just don't have budget to actually solve it, and they're constrained in ways that I'm not. So that's what makes it really fun, and that's why I think on my team we have and at an organizational level we have really low turnover, but like specifically on my team, I think mostly when we hire people and once they kind of see the atmosphere we work in, I think we pretty much all agree like, oh, this is probably the best place we've ever worked, and if we ever went anywhere else, you would be it'd be just so hard because you'd be so constrained in these by what you can do and the problems you can solve.
From what you're saying, it sounds like security is a sometimes in a lot of organizations it's not top of mind and it should be, and so with that, when you have employees that are coming in, or applicants I should say, coming in to inductive automation, and they start seeing the different things that we have here, do you find that there's a bit of a surprise on their part of how we operate in terms of kind of the industry?
Definitely, I think the vast majority of companies don't have really robust security programs, and that's why you're kind of seeing these like ransomware breaches in the news on a daily basis at this point. Stuff that would have been massive news 5 years ago is a daily occurrence now. So this stuff isn't kind of going away, and a lot of companies just kind of underfund areas like security until something bad happens, and then they realize, oh well, I guess funding security and investing here is cheaper than the alternative, but kind of a sad state of affairs. But so a lot of these industries only do what they're kind of mandated to do by whatever compliance they framework they have to follow. And so what I find is that most people I interview or hire come from very compliance focused roles where they're less so solving technical security issues and implementing security and doing like the real good meaty work. They're instead just doing what is required of them to make sure they can check some compliance box, so to speak. And so when you come here and we're not constrained by compliance frameworks that mandate things that maybe are 10 or 15 years old, we're actually just assessing risk and reacting to it as fast as we can and trying to keep up with the trends and stay on top of it. So there's just like, I guess there's a level of agility that most people probably aren't used to in wherever they worked previously.
No, and I think that's very apparent here, in terms of how security is approached. I feel like we're a lot more proactive in terms of our security. We have a security hardening guide. Your department or your division puts out a lot of great resources in terms of training when it comes to security. So I feel like it's always top of mind, and it's not something that we're kind of trailing. I think we're kind of we're there on the forefront of it, and making sure that we're always in a good position, especially what the product that we make. In some cases it's mission critical, so it's good to have that in place.
Yeah, I mean, just to touch on that, I mean, we we have no choice to be but proactive in this regard, because we're an increasingly critical part of the supply chain for some really important customers, all around the world, and so that gives us a really good mission statement there to make sure nothing goes wrong, to make sure we're doing our due diligence, to invest in this area.
Yeah, yeah, and I like how we're not only we're proactive, but we're also working well with our ignition community, and a lot of the messaging that we have about security is that it's a kind of a mutual um, it's a mutual thing. We can put security as much as we can, but it also is upon our users and our customers to implement best practices. We're providing the tools, but it's also up to our customers to implement that. You want to kind of speak to that a little bit?
For sure. I mean, so Ignition's a platform, so it's going to be whatever you make of it. You can do amazing things with it. You could also probably do terrible things, and that's why we put out stuff like the security hardening guideline. There's been a tremendous amount of work that's went into that. So definitely, that's my number one thing to recommend to any customers. Make sure you are aligning to that, because just doing the basics gets you a really long way in security. In almost any crazy breach you read about, it's basically someone skipping something very basic. It's usually not, you don't need super fancy, machine learning, AI driven, cutting edge security tools to stop a lot of the bad things that happen. It's just really basic stuff like we outlined in the hardening guideline, turning on encryption, using multi factor authentication, keeping things up to date. So, as you mentioned, we do our part and we try to keep, Ignition free of vulnerabilities. We regularly engage in third party penetration testing. We participate in things like the Pwn to Own competitions where our software is targeted, and people disclose bugs to us. So we fix those, as fast as we can. And we have tools built into the pipeline that will find vulnerable versions of dependencies, fix them, and ship that. But that's our part, right? And so it's kind of on the customer to make sure they can upgrade their Ignition instance regularly as well. So definitely, we recommend as much as possible. And I think we actually have a blog talking about this. Make sure customers try to put themselves in a position where they could patch quickly if they need to, because we can fix a bug in 5 hours. But if someone's on a 2-year patch cycle, it's not going to help them much.
And it's interesting that you mentioned the Pwn to Own. I think that's been kind of an exciting thing that we've seen here at Inductive Automation. I know we've participated in I believe two already. Is that right?
Yep.
And so we've seen messages come through how we did that, and it's kind of interesting to actually engage in that. Do you find that a lot of companies want to engage in that, or is that something they kind of shy away from, altogether?
In the big picture, historically, a lot of companies shied away from this. If you look back 10, 20 years, a lot of the big companies were trying to sue security researchers, that were saying, "Oh, hey, we found a vulnerability in your software," and the default response would be, "How do we silence this? It makes us look bad." Increasingly, large companies are kind of embracing this approach, and kind of thanking the researchers and working with them proactively. But I think this is still fairly new for industrial control systems and OT stuff. So that's why the Pwn to Own competition was a kind of a big deal when they launched in 2020 there. So we were super happy to be part of the first one and the second one. And but definitely, I mean, definitely not all the customer, not all the potential targets were actually included. There are definitely a lot of companies that would prefer not to have vulnerabilities found and disclosed. But at the end of the day, right, these researchers are just finding vulnerabilities that exist in software. So the faster we find them and fix them, the better off we are. It's better to have an ethical researcher find it than an adversary in another country, that wants to use it for harm.
And is that something that when they first had that, is something where were we invited to that, or is that something we said let's try this and be a part of that? How did that look like in the beginning?
Yeah, I think they started with a couple categories they wanted to target, and then they just reached out to people that they wanted to include, and so we were on that initial list. I believe it was the HMI category, and so I was stoked when I saw that email, because we pay lots of money to third party testers to test this stuff already. So this is just a shot to get dozens of more researchers taking a crack at it and trying to find some stuff that we could help use to help improve Ignition. So super fun, really fun to go to that first one. Definitely one of the highlights of my career here. And to see the response on our side was also really cool to watch the software engineering team fix those bugs as quick as humanly possible.
Yeah, no, I think when we saw how when we first saw the results of that, and then how we responded, and then at the speed at which we put something out, I think it was a great way for us to show that we are, we're proactive about it, and that, we're making, it's not like we're hiding the fact, software has a lot of vulnerabilities. It's just kind of the nature of it, right? But it's a matter of how we approach it and how we respond to it. And it's kind of like it's an ongoing thing. We got to just continue to be on the lookout and to be on top of it. And definitely the work that you've been doing, and definitely your team has been doing, has shown that. And so it's great that we have been participating in stuff like that.
Yeah, I think prevention is ideal, but detection and response is a must. And so a lot of our security program revolves around doing the best we possibly can from a proactive preventative standpoint, but otherwise building out response capabilities. And I personally always judge vendors on their response. How do they respond to bad stuff? Because there's always some weird potential thing, 1 in a million chance that could happen, or vulnerabilities, right? They're just present everywhere. It's part of the game. So how quick do you respond, and what kind of attitude do you take in that regard?
Yeah. So looking into the future, what do you foresee for yourself, for the company, software, the industry as a whole? What do you see coming down the pipeline in that regard?
For the company, I think we'll just continue to grow and just keep adding more consistency and maturity to our programs and processes. Our teams will scale, and we'll just keep from the security standpoint, we're just going to keep trying to build a world class program here. I think in my new role, I will increasingly start to reach across division lines on some bigger issues as well, collaborate more with other divisions and some stuff like that.
And so, in regards to looking to the future, do you foresee any challenges that could be on the way, or be there, if you will?
In general, just the increasing amount of stuff we're putting online and the increasing amount of reliance on technology is definitely a going to be a challenge in the future. There's so many factors here, but the increasing connectedness of all this stuff, this IT OT convergence that people talk about, there are implications there for reliability and security. So there are absolutely benefits to doing this stuff too, but there are always downsides, and so I definitely worry about people moving too fast in this regard and hooking up critical systems to stuff that has a path to the internet, and things like that could result in some bad stuff, similar to what we see with like cloud. As people quickly move to the cloud, they kind of made some rookie mistakes, that caused some big issues because they're now exposing stuff that wasn't previously exposed. So there's yeah, a lot of stuff has been kind of hidden by air gaps in the past that might come to light in the future, unfortunately.
It just requires a lot of planning and a lot of work on customer side and our side, just to work again. It's that mutual relationship that we have with our customers to make sure that everything is considered, and make sure that things are in place. And instead of like, oh, here's some new thing, we'll just jump right into it. 'Cause a lot of times people do that. They're like, oh yeah, this is so cool, we'll just jump into it, and then later along down the line, they just didn't realize or take a look at things to make sure everything was in order. So
Yeah, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? So it's very true in security. So just properly planning some of these deployments and following like hardening guidelines and proper segmentation gets you a long way. It's hard. It's way harder to add that stuff on later.
yeah. Do you find like when it comes to security, for a lot of people, do you think it's just where to start? Is that kind of where people get caught up with when it comes to that?
Yeah, it's hard. It's a lot of stuff to consider. Security is sits on top of everything underneath it, right? So you have like there's so many layers. It's very complex. There's a huge lack of talent right now, or just unfilled jobs, maybe more so. And when you're time constrained, and you can't figure something out, it's easier for some people just to ignore it, and say I'll do it later. So it's really common troubleshooting approach is to turn off the security stuff, get something working, and then people often forget to turn it back on.
We've been talking a lot about the things that you've been doing here at Inductive Automation, and kind of the focus on security. Um, so let's focus outside of work. What are some of the things that you like to do or are involved in?
I'm currently working on my master's degree. So it's about 3 years running. So about to finish up in 6 weeks. So still do a lot of cybersecurity stuff outside of work, around that master's degree. Listen to a lot of podcasts and audiobooks, mostly cyber focused. So pretty big part of my life. Otherwise, my outlet is kind of fitness based stuff. I like to work out a lot. Have a nice home gym now, thanks to COVID. Um, do a lot of obstacle races. I think I've done 35-ish Spartan obstacle races.
Oh,
Had
fantastic.
a
Yeah.
recent shoulder surgery to prove it. Yeah, that's usually my outlet, just to try to disconnect from tech as much as I can.
The Spartan races that you've been involved in, how did you get involved in that as opposed to other sort of competitive fitness events?
Yeah, so I actually hate running, but I always liked lifting and climbing things, and, like, kind of like American Ninja Warrior style stuff was more appealing. So I definitely just saw some of the obstacles and was like, oh, I want to go, you know, crawl through mud and then climb over that giant thing, or jump over fire. So it just sounded cool. I don't know. So I like stuff that's as far away from my day to day, I guess, as possible. So that was appealing. And then I had to, run as part of those things in between those obstacles, but mostly just showed up to climb stuff.
And has there any been a particular Spartan event, a race that stands out to you?
I did one. I didn't like do. No, I'm not saying I did well, but I did the World Championship course. I think it was back in 2018 in Tahoe. So it was way up there, really high elevation. It was a brutal course, super cold. Had to swim in like 30-degree water. People were getting hypothermia. Um, so that one was fun. Felt good to finish it.
Excellent. Well, this wraps up our podcast. Jason, thank you so much for joining me here today. Thank you for having a conversation regarding your journey here at Inductive Automation. Is there anything that you like, any parting words that you want to leave with our audience or with any prospective applicant to IA?
To future applicants, I think it's a great place to work. The vibe, the culture, the people are fantastic. So it's been just a nonstop, stream of new projects and things to do and growth. It's been really positive experience. I think to customers, please follow the ignition security hardening guidelines. So that's my big plug there. Otherwise, I mean, it's just really cool though to see what our customers are doing with their software. We had ICC a couple months ago, so just every time hearing these crazy things that people are doing, because I'm a bit removed from the customer side of things. So it's always a nice refresher to see just the scale and the scope and the creativity that some people are showing. It's pretty awesome. So it makes it really, I don't know, really, it feels like, we're doing good work here, and our roles are all important. So a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's always great to see what our customers do with our software. And again, thank you for your work with security, and thank you for everything that you've done here at Inductive Automation. Um, Again, thank you for joining with me, Jason, and I hope you have a great day.
You too.